Hi, I'm Jenny, founder of Gentle Landmark and the host of Gathering Voices. Welcome back for a second season of exploring cultivation, what it means to intentionally grow our relationships, our work, and the communities we surround ourselves with. Each conversation is an invitation to slow down, listen deeply, and connect with the voices that bring clarity, alignment, and peace. Thank you for being here and for cultivating space for meaningful connection. Today's episode explores what it means to build an ethical, sustainable mental health practice rooted in care, not pressure. Tiffany from Cozy Corner Counseling reflects on how leadership emerged from necessity and how motherhood, postpartum OCD, and grief have shaped the way she practices, leads, and creates spaces for healing. Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to have you on today, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Tiffany Castillo. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I'm also the owner of the Cozy Corner Counseling. We're a mental health private practice. We offer a variety of services and we like to help our community.
Just a little backstory. Tiffany and I met middle of last year. We instantly hit it off and we put on a beautiful mental health awareness event in October, and it was so lovely. So I'm excited to dive deeper.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your practice more and what are your philosophies? How did it start? Some of that backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of came to be from the Cozy Corner is from my own journey as well as a therapist, but also just in the work field, in the communities that we went through, into the job forces, I figured out that a lot of places would kind of advertise as very family oriented or we're this big family. And then you would actually get to the workplace and it was the complete opposite. Or maybe it was a toxic family system. So there was a lot of like yelling, criticism, very much this very hostile workplace. And as I was going through my own journey, I was like, wait, this is not what I want. And I haven't been able to find something that matches what it preaches in a way. A lot of the Cozy Corner and the philosophies came to be that we have a very strong mission and value for our clients and also the people that walk through our door to feel like they're being treated with respect, that they're not being discriminated against, and that they can just show up with open arms and everything's okay. And that goes the same with the therapists on our team. I really strive to be a really great leader, if we want to say, and make sure that the therapist feels supported in whatever journey or process that they want to go through.
I love that you said leader and you almost kind of hesitated there. But I feel like all entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, whenever you're at that level, you are a leader and you either rise up to that occasion or you don't. And that kind of sets the playing field of your business. So don't shy away from that leadership role.
Yes, you are true. It's funny when I think of the word leader, sometimes there's that connotation that it feels icky because growing up in my own cultural background, I am Latina. We are raised to be very humble and to be grateful and gracious for the opportunities that fall into our lap. And so again, going with that philosophy, but also being community oriented, I try to strive for the philosophy that there's not just one leader, maybe someone in the reins for a certain task, but depending on what the situation is or what's going on, we all transfer through that and work collaboratively together.
Yeah. I like that. Again, you're not only thinking about the clients you're serving, but you're also thinking about those that you're employing, which is a really beautiful message because I think so often that gets left out of the equation and it's purely how do I make sales? The client has to always be right. And really paying homage to those who are making those things happen.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that will always say the client's not always right. And I will go to bat for my therapist, especially if there's any abuse tactics or any like manipulation or things like that that may happen, because we do understand where clients are coming from and we can empathize with that. But I always say having mental health doesn't give you an excuse to be an asshole.
Mm. Nothing to say after that. So, your identity as a licensed professional counselor, what does that look like for you? How has that evolution of becoming a therapist played into your personal life? Where did that really start from?
So therapy kind of fell into my lap. Again, growing up from a Latina background, mental health really wasn't always talked about. It was actually very stigmatizing. And I would see family members who would have mental health or would struggle with substances and addiction, and there just wasn't a word or a label for it. And as a kid, you're kind of like, hey, I kind of see this, but I don't know what it is. And family just telling you either mind your business or it's okay, or that's just kind of the way they are and it's fine. So I actually went to school. I was a chem major originally, and I minored in psychology and literature because that was the fun parts, the stuff that I was interested in knowing and I was passionate about. But what a lot of the Latin community could probably relate to is usually college, you're going into some type of STEM program. For me, that was going to be a doctor. And through my journey, I realized that it kind of wasn't what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what. And then as I was going through college, I worked full time and I worked a few jobs on the side as well. In my junior year of college, so during my undergrad year, I had a really big outstanding balance for school and I wasn't able to pay it. And at that point, I had to basically plead to the school to let me finish my junior year, to come up with a payment plan. And I had to do all of that by myself. And it came face to face with almost the idea that I might have to not be able to finish school. And so what ended up happening is I had to drop my chem major degree. So I had a lot more credits in my psych and my literature, and then I also was involved in a lot of activities. I ended up graduating with my bachelor's in psychology. Had no idea what to do with it, but I ended up working in case management for adults with intellectual disabilities and mental health disorders. And I really fell into my psych love during that time and realized I wanted to do more along with kind of my family of figuring out why these patterns and these cycles kept repeating.
While you were building this practice, was there anything else going on? What did that look like? How was that affecting your personal life compared to your professional life? Was there any clash?
So yes, there definitely was. What most people didn't see was while I was building the practice, I was also navigating one of the most vulnerable seasons in my life. I gave birth to my daughter in December of 2023. And shortly after, I learned that my dad had pancreatic cancer. And that was a really big hit to our family. I was only 1 month postpartum and he was already at stage 2, meaning that at that time his cancer had spread to a different part of his body. We just didn't know how severe it was. So I was navigating postpartum, taking care of my dad, and then also trying to build my practice from the ground up during this time.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing at all what your postpartum transition looked like? And then maybe we can go into how was managing all of that.
Yeah. A lot of people may not know this, but I actually specialize in perinatal mental health. I work with moms and women who are pregnant, postpartum, and then going through the process. I also work with families during this. And a lot of that was already something I did clinically before, but my love for it grew once I had my daughter. So a little bit of background is I struggle with OCD already as part of my own mental health journey. And when I gave birth, I actually fell into having postpartum OCD. And for my own OCD experiences with birth, it latched onto themes of death, safety, and mortality. And so during this part of my postpartum journey, I just noticed that my world got smaller and my fear of safety, of control, of needing to feel okay, that fear just got louder. I think a lot of people don't talk about OCD, especially in postpartum, because there's so much shame and isolation. And that's the way that it works, right? It feeds off of these intrusive thoughts, the thoughts that we don't even want to have, that we don't realize that we're having. And there's this anxious, like dark stranger in a corner that's kind of like, hey, right? Like, don't tell anyone this secret. Don't tell anyone what you're thinking. They'll think you're crazy. And you can really fall into that because you're kind of like, well, I don't know why I'm having these thoughts. I don't believe in it. It's not a
Yeah.
part of my own moral compass. But that's the way that OCD works. It plays on that.
How did you get yourself out of that mindset? Or do you feel that it still lingers with you still to this day? Or how has that changed how you navigate when you work with certain patients?
Mm. I would say OCD can be pretty complex, especially depending on the type of OCD that you have. So I have pure O, which means that my obsessions are my thoughts, and then my compulsions, so the things that I do to kind of soothe those thoughts, are also mental as well. So it's a lot of reassurance seeking, telling myself that I'm okay, fact checking, reviewing stuff. And so I would say during my postpartum journey, I really had to lean into asking for help. And what people don't really share with you is that you can have so much support, physical support, emotional support, everything under the sun, and you can still feel pretty lonely. And that was my experience. My husband, my mom, my mother-in-law, all amazing, beautiful people that helped me through my journey, but I still struggled with that postpartum OCD. And I had to tell my husband about it and say, I'm really struggling with this and I don't know what to do. And he actually was the one that helped me look online to find a therapist that specialized in postpartum disorders. And so I worked through there along with my own love of learning as a therapist to figure out what could really help me. And a lot of the times it was actually falling into some trauma work, some trauma focused therapy, some somatic work, and then also accepting and challenging these thoughts that come up in my brain, which is honestly all the stuff that I do as a therapist myself with my own clients. Because sometimes it's not just challenging a negative thought or taking a deep breath or trying to get myself to relax. It looks like checking in with my body, right? When I have this big reaction or physical response, right? Where is that sitting with my body? What is that emotion or that feeling trying to tell me? What does it need from me? And it has made me pause a lot and slow down because I'm constantly asking myself, like, hey, what do you need, right? What's going on right now? How can I help? Is this something that, we need to deal with right now? Can we talk about this later? Can we meet in the middle? And it sounds funny because you're basically having a conversation with yourself, but that's part of the process. We talk about therapy modalities, kind of pulling a little bit from like internal family systems or IFS and doing some part work where we're checking in with those parts of ourselves that usually we feel a lot of shame or anger or frustration with, because it's the parts of us that get in the way of the shit that needs to be done, right? We don't have
Yeah,
time to sit with our feelings. We have work to do. But
absolutely.
yeah, but sometimes we need to.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to navigate and take time to do to have those inner dialogues. For those who may be struggling with this or want to maybe practice, what are some tips that you would give to foster those inner dialogues in your everyday life?
I would say some tips or recommendations for fostering that connection with yourself is really understanding why you react or respond the way that you do. Right? Like when we think about the nervous system, I know it's a really big buzzword, right? The nervous system and like how to heal the nervous system. But when we're really thinking about that, it's been built up on our experiences. And a lot of it ties back to when we were a child. And I think a lot of that is really understanding that it's not you that has a problem, right? Like we're not looking at what's wrong with you. We're looking at what happened to you, right? Why are you having these responses and reactions? And get curious with yourself, right? When those thoughts or those feelings or those emotions or reactions come up, and I always use it as the one of like, I don't know, you had a really shitty day at work and you come home and, you had leftovers in the fridge and it was the best dinner you ever had in your life. And you're like, my day at work sucks so badly, but I can't wait to get home and eat that. And then you go into the fridge and someone ate it,
Oh no.
right? And you just lose your shit, right? You lose your shit. You have a meltdown. You start yelling. You start screaming, whatever the case may be. And then afterwards, you maybe have these big feelings of like shame. Why did I have this big reaction? It really wasn't that big of a deal. But if we were to pull from that, what was it that was going on? What did you feel when you went into the fridge and someone took your leftovers? A lot of the times it's connected to that value of you. I felt disrespected. My stuff was taken. I was disrespected. I feel like my partner doesn't care about me. Logically, I know that's not the case and that they would get me my leftovers if I asked for it. But emotionally, right, it's tying into that they don't care about me. They don't love me. And that's what I would suggest as a thing. Just really being curious with yourself and understanding that framework.
I think the way you just broke that down was very good and almost like a basic level that everyone could understand. So thank you. I'm over here reflecting. I'm like, okay, a situation happened and like how did I process that?
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really helpful. And even if someone's going through therapy or not, it's important to be curious, like you said, to be a better person overall and also be able to be your best self moving forward. You were talking about all the things that were going on while you started your practice. We haven't dove into one of them in terms of grief and your father's passing. Do you want to go into that at all? And especially from a therapist side of you?
Yeah. So you are probably one of the few people that I would talk about this with because it is very recent still to me. My dad passed away September of 2024. His 1 year anniversary just passed. But I can say that when my dad got his cancer diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, it was, you kind of do what everyone does, which I always tell my clients not to. Don't use Dr. Google. But here I was using Dr. Google, right? Like pancreatic cancer, stage 2 life expectancy. And there was, I think, over 90% of those who end up getting a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, their life expectancy within that 5 year span is very significantly low. So even though they had caught it early, there was still this logical aspect of like, most likely he's going to die. And that definitely impacted me. I was taking care of my daughter. I was taking care of my dad. And I was also trying to build this practice up. And it looked a lot like a hot mess, I would say. I think my practice was probably the anchor for me because I needed some outlet. When I think about my own experiences, the way my nervous system works, when life gets hard, I tend to want to run, right? I will run away from a situation. I will avoid it. I will just look and just kind of move past it as fast as I can. But with this, you can't.
Yeah.
And so my practice was something I used to anchor that energy into. I'm not able to move away from this. How can I use this? And that's what I did. I'm also really grateful that during the time that my dad was struggling with cancer, he has a background or had a background in business and starting his own business. And he walked me through those steps. And he was side by side walking me through the journey of making my practice. I would say it was very complicated because there was moments of joy of seeing my daughter, right? So all the experiences of her growing to be who she is, on top of seeing the other side of things, watching someone decline and maybe lose the ability to do things that they were able to do before. And so there was a lot of conflicting stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of love this beautiful message that seems to be coming across as you're sharing this. It's almost like he helped you build something that would keep you safe or keep you in line with the progressive future in a way. And while he was, declining, he was still being that amazing father and setting you up. And with that being your practice, it's almost like he's there protecting you even now.
I would absolutely say that. And that was a huge framework of his idea of being a dad. When we talk about, and I mean, we know all this shit that's going on in the world right now, in terms of immigration. But so my dad was a second generation American. And even being second generation, he went back and forth from Ecuador and then the United States. So for him, he was kind of navigating that experience, right, of deciding whether or not to assimilate into American culture or to figure out a way to mesh the two together. And from his own upbringing, there was a lot of this desire of needing to feel safe, right?
Mm,
Needing to make sure that his family was protected and that we were all able to do the things that we needed to do in case he wasn't around. And that's how we grew up.
yeah.
And during the time that he was in treatment, that was his big philosophy of, I want you, I want your daughter, I want your brother. I want the family to be safe, even when I'm not here, that you feel supported and that you have this foundation, something that can carry you towards the future. And you don't have to feel maybe the ways that I've had to feel of doing jobs I didn't like or having to swallow my pride over certain things for the sake of my family. You don't have to do that. And really, that American dream of like, my family deserves better and
Yeah.
I'm doing this for them.
Mm. It's so funny how there's always a silver lining in hard situations, right? And that definitely sounds like a big silver lining. Yeah. So, in all that has happened within the last 2 years or so, what would you say all of these experiences have led to? Do you feel now standing in it and what you've been able to create and persevere through? What does that mean to you?
I would say these last 2 years were pretty challenging, but also very exciting. And anyone who knows me kind of knows that I can sit with hard things, but then still find the excitement of stuff. And that's just who I am. If we're going to talk about cancer, right, I'm going to make the font nice and colorful and funky because we're going to lighten up the room somehow. And that's how my work is, in creating these spaces where people feel supported and understood and not rushed. Like, yes, there's room for the tough shit. And I would say even in therapy, a lot of the times I'm working with clients where we're talking about the really tough shit, but it doesn't have to feel so hard, right? We can
Yeah.
layer it. We can let you feel supported, let your nervous system feel safe, and make it in a way that feels unique to you, right? We're not rushing through these experiences. We're really taking our time to understand it and then understand the way that your brain and the way that you process these. And so, on a personal level, these past 2 years, they weren't like its own section of my life. They've shaped how I practice, how I lead, and also how I live life in terms of motherhood and just my own postpartum journey and grief. It's definitely deepened my empathy. I would say I've always been a maybe sensitive person in the sense of these were some of the dialogues or the messages that I got growing up, that I feel too much or that I am sensitive.
Mm.
But it actually helped me see that as a strength. that my empathy is not a negative thing, and maybe my approach in figuring out how to use my empathy as a strength without it burning myself out. When we talk about the cozy corner, it's become a response to real life. It's not just a business goal for me. I know sometimes for business owners, being able to say I have a business is kind of their marking point, right? I am a business owner. This means something. And yes, that's very important. But to me, I didn't make the cozy corner just to be a business owner. I came to create something new, something that really lets people feel like they're truly seen and heard and valued and deeply respected, because respect is the root to everything. People say love is, but there's a reason why you can be in love with someone and still not be a good partner together. Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, love is so much deeper than just liking someone. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Well, I would love to say that from building our relationship and collaborating with the Cozy Corner Counseling and all the amazing service workers that have participated in our events, the community you're fostering and creating is really, really beautiful. I know I myself really appreciate it. So, what are some last final words that you would love to share to people, whether it's about your practice? Do you have any openings? How can they contact you?
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you professionally, but then also as a new friendship. So I'm grateful to have you in my life. I would say, in terms of the practice, yes, we have openings. We are in Easton. We're currently in the process of moving. So by March 1st, we will have our new office space on Nazareth Road, right next to the Palmer Park Mall. But we have lots of openings with some really awesome and cool therapists that specialize in different things. And I would say our work or our specialties tend to fall in a trauma-informed and trauma-focused care. And we have a lot of EMDR therapists as well. And starting in March, we will have a certified art therapist who is also
Fun.
EMDR trained, along with a couples therapist who specializes in spiritual integration and kink affirming sex therapy, and also part of the LGBTQ community. And so it's definitely a vibe.
Amazing. I love that so much. And people need to know that these services are out there for them in whatever way that they show up. So that's beautiful that you got some of those new integrations coming in.
Absolutely. We're also a Safe Space Alliance. We are in the directory with them, and we are constantly advocating for the supports of all minority communities, especially during this time now.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Gathering Voices, and we'll continue to connect as always. And have a great day.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Gathering Voices. If this episode resonated with you, stay in touch with Jentle Landmark for future gatherings and conversations rooted in intention and community. Stay connected, stay inspired, and let's continue to celebrate the voices that shape our world. Until next time, take care and share your story.